Hello everyone, welcome to Bit of Anatomy. So in this embryology lecture series, we will start with the fertilization. So fertilization is a successful love story between the sperm and also the secondary oocyte. So to define it, it is the fusion of two haploid gametes, that is the sperm and the ovum, to form a diploid single zygote. So there are various steps in the fertilization. The first step is where the sperm and ovum meet. So they meet up at the ampulla part of the uterine tube where the fertilization occurs. So this step is called as approximation of the gametes. So once the sperm and the oocyte meet, then the two should fuse and the nucleus of the sperm should enter into the female or the secondary oocyte. So that is called as the fusion of the gametes. And once the fusion occurs and the zygote is formed, there are various effects that occurs because of the fertilization. So these are the three steps: the approximation, the fusion, and effects. So if you see parts of the female reproductive tract, it includes the uterus, the cervix, the vagina, and the uterine tube, which consists of the interstitial part, the isthmus part, the ampulla, and the infundibulum. The ovary lies in the angle between the uterine tube and also the uterus and connected to the angle by the ligament. So during sexual intercourse, around 200 to 300 million sperms they are deposited in the female reproductive tract or in the vagina. During ovulation, the secondary oocyte along with its coverings are released from the ovary, which is taken up by the fimbriated end of the uterine tube and it reaches the ampulla. And the sperms should travel through the entire uterus and various parts of the uterine tube to reach the ampulla where the fertilization occurs. So if you see the factors favoring the sperm transport, so the motility of the sperm is one of the prime factor. The contraction of the uterus, so which is assisted by hormones like oxytocin, and the contraction of the muscles and also the ciliary action of epithelium of the uterine tube. So if you see the factors favoring the oocyte transport, the oocyte is picked up by the fimbriated end of the uterine tube, and further transport is assisted by cilia and muscles of the uterine tube. So the next step is the fusion of the gametes. So if you see the parts of the sperm, so it includes the head, which consists of the cell membrane, an acrosome, cap, and the nucleus, so which forms the head of the sperm. So apart from that, it has got a neck, it has got a body which contains spirally arranged mitochondria and a long tail which helps in motility. So once the sperms enter into the female reproductive system, so it undergoes a final step of maturation which is called as capacitation. So after this final step of maturation occurs, a reaction called as acrosomal reaction occurs where the cell membrane and the acrosomal membrane will fuse with each other and the contents of the acrosome are released into the surface. So it mainly contains enzymes like hyaluronidase. So this hyaluronidase, it helps to break the barriers that are present around the secondary oocyte. So if you see the barriers around the secondary oocyte, it consists of zona pellucida. So and outside the zona pellucida, there will be cells of the corona radiata and the cell membrane of the secondary oocyte, that is the vitelline membrane. So these are the barriers: the corona radiata, zona pellucida, and the vitelline membrane. So out of 200 to 300 million sperms that enter into the female reproductive system during sexual intercourse, around 100 to 300 sperms reach the ampulla of the uterine tube. So they surround the secondary oocyte, out of which only one succeeds in entering. So there will be acrosome reaction and release of hyaluronidase, which disrupts the corona radiata. And once the sperm comes in contact with the zona pellucida, there is species-specific zona reaction. So after this zona reaction, the sperm will enter into the perivitelline space. So once the sperm enters the perivitaline space, the cell membrane of the sperm comes in contact with cell membrane of the secondary oocyte. So there will be fusion of the cell membrane, and some mention that only the nucleus enters into the secondary oocyte. Some mention that the entire sperm will enter and the remaining parts are destroyed within the oocyte. So anyhow, the male nucleus, once it enters, it is called as the male pronucleus, and the female counterpart is known as the female pronucleus. So this completes the formation of a diploid cell, that is the zygote. So actually there is no formation of a complete cell during the fertilization. So immediately this zygote will start undergoing division. If you see the effects of fertilization, immediately after the male nucleus enters into the secondary oocyte, so there are some cortical granules which get accumulated just beneath the vitelline membrane, which release calcium into the perivitelline space. This is called as cortical reaction. So this forms a barrier which prevents the entry of other sperms, or in other words, it prevents the polyspermy. So this is one of the effect of fertilization. Then there is restoration of diploid chromosomes. So initially the sperm and the oocyte, they contain haploid chromosomes. The zygote contains the diploid chromosomes. So there will be completion of second meiotic division of the oocyte. So if you remember, during ovulation, secondary oocyte is released and not the mature ovum. Secondary oocyte completes the second meiotic division only if there is fertilization. If fertilization does not occur, then the secondary oocyte is shed off during menstruation. So during this completion of the second meiotic division, a second polar body is also released into the perivitelline space. Then the sex is determined during the time of fertilization itself. So the secondary oocyte, it always carries the 23X chromosomes. So the sperms carries either 23X or the 23Y. So if it is fertilized by 23Y, then the resultant baby is male, or the resultant baby will be female. So the sex of the baby is determined by the father and not the mother. So the fertilization, it initiates the cleavage division, so which we will see in the next tutorials. And finally, it determines the polarity, or the craniocaudal axis is determined by the point of entry of the sperm. So these are the features of fertilization: the approximation of the gametes, fusion of the gametes, the effects of fertilization. So do subscribe for future updates. Thank you.